Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, if you thought the NFL offseason couldn't get any crazier, well, think again. Today we're talking about something that's been sending shockwaves through the sports world. Myles Garrett, the elite pass rusher of the Cleveland Browns, potentially being traded to none other than the Dallas Cowboys. But here's the kicker. This trade isn't just about Garrett's on-field talent. It's also about a bigger plan, a $100 million plan, and it could change the landscape of the NFL as we know it. So buckle up, because we've got a wild ride ahead. Imagine this. Myles Garrett, a 6'4" powerhouse with a relentless edge, who has terrorized quarterbacks for years as the Cleveland Browns' centerpiece, packing his bags and heading to the Dallas Cowboys. A trade of this magnitude isn't just a headline. It's a potential game-changer for the NFL. Garrett's presence would significantly shift the balance of power in the NFC, and that's not even considering the larger context of a bold $100 million plan orchestrated by Dallas's front office. The Cowboys, a team filled with ambition and legacy, have long been trying to break free from decades of disappointment. And this trade could be the key to unlocking a Super Bowl window that's as elusive as it is tantalizing. To understand why this trade is so explosive, we need to look at Garrett's background. The Cleveland Browns selected Garrett first overall in 2017, and it didn't take long for him to prove that he was worthy of that pick. With over 70 sacks in just 7 seasons, Garrett has established himself as one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. His athleticism and explosiveness off the edge have made him a nightmare for quarterbacks, and yet despite this, there has been growing talk about his future in Cleveland. Could the Browns really be willing to part ways with their star defensive player? The rumors have been building for months, and while the Browns have remained tight-lipped, the fact that Garrett's name keeps coming up in trade discussions speaks volumes. It's not just about his production on the field. It's about the future of the franchise and whether the Browns can realistically contend for a Super Bowl in the near future. And then enter the Cowboys, a team that has been sitting at the crossroads of greatness and frustration for years. Dallas's defense, anchored by the incomparable Micah Parsons, is undeniably talented, but they lack the kind of edge presence that could turn them into a truly elite unit. While Parsons is a generational talent, even he can't carry the weight of an entire defense on his shoulders alone. That's where Garrett comes in. A duo of Garrett and Parsons would send chills down the spines of every offensive coordinator in the NFL. The combination of Garrett's power and Parsons' speed would create a dynamic that few offenses could handle. Offensive lines would have to pick their poison. Double-team Garrett and leave Parsons in one-on-one matchups, or focus on Parsons and give Garrett a free lane to the quarterback. The possibilities are endless, and they would immediately elevate the Cowboys' defense to a level that could compete with the best in the league. But here's the catch. Trading for Garrett isn't just about acquiring an elite player, it's part of a much larger, high-stakes plan. The Cowboys have been operating with the understanding that they're in a championship window, but one that's rapidly closing. Dak Prescott is in his prime, but the window won't last forever. The Cowboys need to capitalize on their current roster and make strategic moves that allow them to push for a Super Bowl in the next few years. This is where the $100 million plan comes into play. A trade for Garrett is more than just a move for one player. It's part of a broader financial strategy to make the Cowboys a contender for the foreseeable future. The goal? To position Dallas not only as a powerhouse on defense, but also to make key investments on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's securing high-profitable free agents or locking up key players to long-term deals. The plan revolves around leveraging the resources available to the Cowboys, particularly the cap space, which has been a constant topic of conversation. Garrett's contract is hefty, but if the Cowboys can make the numbers work, they would have a dominant force on defense for the next few years. The team's front office has been known for its financial acumen, and they've often found ways to work around cap limitations. The Garrett trade would require a bit of salary cap magic, but Dallas has the tools to pull it off. To make room, the Cowboys might have to make tough decisions regarding veteran players, restructuring contracts, or even parting with some assets that could help build depth. But the Cowboys know that in order to win a Super Bowl, sacrifices have to be made. And if it means trimming the roster to accommodate a player like Garrett, so be it. It's also important to note that the Cowboys would have to give up significant draft capital to secure Garrett's services. The Browns aren't in the business of giving away their best player for a bargain deal. The Cowboys would likely need to part with at least one first-round pick, possibly even more, to seal the deal. That means Dallas would need to look at their future and determine whether trading away high draft picks is worth the immediate upgrade Garrett brings to the table. This type of aggressive move could be the defining factor for the Cowboys in their quest to return to the Super Bowl. For Cleveland, the trade would have ramifications as well. The Browns, like many other teams in the NFL, are always looking for ways to build for the future, and shedding Garrett's contract could free up significant cap space. The Browns could potentially use that cap flexibility to bring in new talent through free agency or make key draft selections that bolster their roster. However, the emotional toll of trading away a player of Garrett's caliber would be felt by the franchise and the fans. Garrett is one of the faces of the Browns' rebuild, and moving him would signal a new direction for the team. But if the Browns believe that their window for contention is closing, they might be willing to pull the trigger. As for the Cowboys, the impact of acquiring Garrett would be immediate and transformative. The team's defense would go from solid to spectacular overnight, and Garrett's presence would free up opportunities for other players to thrive. With a defense that can dominate, the Cowboys' offense would have the luxury of working with a shorter field, forcing opposing teams into more predictable passing situations. This, in turn, would make Dak Prescott's job easier, as he could rely on his defense to take control of games. The Cowboys' Super Bowl hopes would no longer feel like a distant dream. They'd be right in the thick of it. But is it worth it? That's the $100 million question. The Cowboys would have to weigh the risk of giving up future assets for a chance at glory in the short term. They'd also have to consider whether this trade pushes them over the edge, or if it's another star acquisition that doesn't quite materialize into a championship. The clock is ticking, and the Cowboys know that their time to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott is limited. This trade, if it happens, could be the difference between another early playoff exit and a Super Bowl parade down the streets of Dallas. The NFL landscape would change in profound ways if the Cowboys pulled this off. The NFC East would be transformed into a battle of elite defenses, with the Cowboys and their new defensive duo of Garrett and Parsons becoming a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, the Browns would have to recalibrate and retool, deciding how to rebuild around a new defensive identity. In the end, this trade would be more than just a transaction. It would set the stage for a new chapter in both franchises' stories, with the stakes higher than ever. The Cowboys have a decision to make, and it's one that could shape the future of the team for years to come. Will they be bold enough to execute this trade and commit to a $100 million plan that could secure them a Super Bowl title? Or will they opt for a more cautious approach and continue to build with what they have? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: if this trade happens, the NFL will never be the same.